All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the SEMA stage. We're going to talk a little bit about our new Chicago Tech Center and what we're doing out there, the incredible training that we've put together. So why don't we start up front, Mike? We'll start with that. What do we do in that front office? We've got our Learning Design Studio, our Learning Innovations Design Studio.
We do. We have our Learning Innovation Studio where essentially all our research into XR will happen as we start to see what we can use with virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, everything kind of under that general spectrum to see what we can take from those technologies and actually make brand new, innovative, and exciting learning experiences. So we've got a giant screen there that we're easily able to explain to people as they're coming in and visiting the Chicago Tech Center what all these different technologies are. I mean, you've got XR, VR, AR, there's so many different acronyms, right? People really aren't completely familiar what all the differences are between all that stuff. So really quickly, they can come into the Chicago Tech Center, they can see all those on the screen and understand very quickly what the differences of all that stuff is.
Hey, Mike, let me jump in there. Last week, I had a chance to give Jaguar Land Rover a visit, and I was really intrigued that they use those virtual environment for train people on how to remove battery cells from high voltage batteries. So that was pretty cool, and they set up the perimeter. So are you thinking this is something ICA should go in? Where are we going with this? So I thought, okay, manufacturers is starting doing it, you diving into where we start, where we end, where is this going? That's so cool. I love that technology.
Absolutely. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head right there, essentially, right? A technician was able to practice working on those batteries, removing them, taking them out, putting them back in a safe manner, right? What's all the steps that need to go into that? A lot of that is still brand new to a lot of technicians out there, and their confidence level may not be very high to do that at first, right? I mean, you think about it, you're dealing with electricity here, where you just said it, you can put the virtual reality goggles on, and you can learn what that process is in a safe manner. So not only are you learning the fundamental steps to actually doing it in real life, but you now have the confidence that you know you're following the correct steps.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Perfect. So just for those that don't understand, maybe just a real quick explanation of the difference between augmented and virtual. And
Sure. So I typically have a slide that'll show an umbrella, and it has XR on it, which is extended reality, and that is a catch-all for everything under that. So there is AR, augmented reality, which is basically like, Joel, if you threw a pair of glasses on, right, you'd be able to see everyone out in the crowd out here, but you could see digital objects in front of you, maybe our electric vehicle cart. Another great example is virtual reality, VR. That's where you're actually putting things on like the MetaQuest 2 or the MetaQuest Pro, and your vision is completely covered, and whatever the lenses are producing is the whole experience you're actually having.
perfect. So I think there's some other things that we're doing up there as well, though, right, that are part of this. If we think about the fact that we have recently acquired a 3D scanner so that we can start to create some of our own 3D assets, but we're also looking at 3D printing and starting to do the research to understand, is this really a viable option for the collision industry? And if it is, what will it take for a collision repair professional to get into 3D printing?
Absolutely, absolutely. Everything we are doing in the Learning Design Studio and really at the CTC is relevant to the industry we work in.
Perfect. And for those that don't know, the CTC is Chicago Tech Center, just to clarify that. So now we step into where kind of the rubber meets the road right now. We step into the exciting part, the shops, the labs, the classrooms. And you start to think about what we're doing out there. And the entire reason for us creating this tech center really was for us to be able to start to get into helping the industry develop the skill proficiency that we noticed a gap, right? We noticed there's a gap with things like ADAS and EV currently, but it could be other things that will come in the future. We're starting to see more mixed materials in vehicle construction, and joining techniques are changing, and the repairability and how you repair these cars is changing. So now we step, like I said, into the back, and we start looking at the training that we have. And Joel, I'll let you pick it up a little bit to start talking a little bit about some of the ADAS and EV training that we have in the back.
Sure. So we have our ADAS lab, which forget the square footage, it's a giant room.
6,300.
6,300 square feet. And we have a 40 by 70 perfectly level concrete surface. So we poured that specially and trying to figure out, I know we were trying to figure out how to do it, and the contractors didn't even know if they could do it. So,
Right.
you know, we'll be bringing that out to the industry to help show them, you know, here's how we can go about doing that. But the flat surface is needed for making sure that your calibrations are correct. They're done correctly. And then we have a bunch of the OEM tooling in there that we're keeping acquiring more and more stuff as we go.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really built around a very specific purpose. The room, the paint is a very light color to make sure we don't have a bunch of distractions on the wall, so it tricks the cameras and stuff like that. The floor is a matte finish, so we don't have reflections off the floor. We have dimmable LED lighting, so we can create the perfect environment that we need to make sure these calibrations are done correctly.
Yeah, it's all about creating that perfect environment to learn, but also for the calibrations, no reflections, no shadows, things like that. So Dirk, if we now let's start talking about the training a little bit though. So we've got, in our ADAS training, we've got two different ADAS training courses. So we've got our 3-day static calibration, and then the course that we developed in collaboration with Ford that is a 2-day training course that focuses on calibrating Ford vehicles. So maybe speak a little bit about the differences between those two courses and what we're doing there.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, so the Ford training course is a dynamic calibration course. So it means Ford choose as manufacturer they choose to, sorry guys, to build a dynamic calibration method. So somebody has to go and really have to calibrate that car while driving and dynamically calibrates. So for us, it's important that technicians learn what happens when the calibration fails. When in this test driving, the camera will not calibrate. So there could be different possibilities. And I think the team put like over 80 different fault codes or faults in those vehicles, and the technician goes through and has to find and learns a diagnostic to develop a diagnostic strategy. So there is a really intriguing and a really good class on this way. The other 3-day class is more based on static calibration, where you place your target, why you're doing this, what the service information means that the manufacturer described, and what you could make wrong. So there is a lot of mixed up in those two training classes, and you know, I personally love both of them. They're great stuff. Joel is one of our instructors, and it's innovative. You'll learn a lot. You'll learn diagnostics. You'll learn a lot about how to use your tool, how to use your measurement tools. A lot of things going on in this training course.
And I think the reason why this is so important is we have the conversations with folks around the industry to talk about ADAS calibrations and why they need to be done, when they need to be done. And the majority of the folks that we talk to, they're still doing it wrong. They're either doing it wrong or they're not doing it at all. Yeah. You know, which is, you know, not good either. And for a shop that's using a third party that is doing this calibration for them, they still need to have the ADAS training and understanding so that if they get that third party vendor brings the vehicle back, they can look at all the documentation to confirm it was done right. They used the right procedure. The systems are functioning the way they're designed. Because at the end of the day, again, not an attorney, but the reality is the liability doesn't end with sending it out to a third-party provider. You need to understand these systems, and it's your responsibility as a repairer to make sure that this stuff has been done properly. So getting the people in to this training to help them build that skill proficiency so that they can do this is really important. And I think it's important to also understand that with this training, it's not come in, you go through a couple of days of training and you go home. 95% probably is hands-on in the lab, performing calibrations, and then when they're done, they have 2 different tests, right?
Yes, we have a written test that you're going to go through, and then you have a hands-on test where we're going to go through and run you through the different calibrations and make sure that you understand and know what you're doing, so that when you leave here or leave the CTC, we're confident that you know what you learned from that class.
Yeah. Perfect. So now let's get into the other class that we have going on out there. This one is potential. Well, ADAS is here, right? But I would say that I could make the argument that EV's already here. It may not be as big as ADAS is now, but it's coming and coming fast.
It's
And
coming.
we have to get people trained quickly on how to properly, not necessarily repair, but to repair them safely. How do you get this vehicle in? How do you power it down? How do you confirm zero potential? How do you know it's safe for everybody in the shop to work on that? You know, there was an article just a couple of weeks ago from Automotive News that outlined 150 new models, new EV models coming to the U.S. market by 2026. 150 new models.
And those are new models, not existing vehicles that are being electrified. Those are brand new vehicles.
Right.
So, especially in our collision industry, we're the first ones to see these EVs. You can take that that Hummer EV off the lot, and 2 days later get hit, and then it ends up in your bay.
Yep.
So we need to be able to know how to work with these vehicles and how to know the safe way to disconnect, make our measurements, make sure everything's good, and when it's put back together, that it'll be good for the customer and there won't be any issues.
Right. So Dirk, you're we have many now. You've developed a tremendous team of people that have a tremendous amount of knowledge around ADAS and EV. There are trainers and SMEs and what they do, but being the person that was kind of the mastermind behind what we put together in our training, let's talk a little bit about what we do in our EV training and why it's so important for the industry.
So the whole EV training world, or the whole EV segment, is really interesting. Then technically it's a technology what can hurt somebody, and when you make a mistake you can be killed. So high voltage is dangerous. The manufacturers are doing an awesome job, a great job in protecting our technicians with the safety measures they're putting in. But on the other side, there is no really a regulation in this country what regulates what a technician have to know before he touched those vehicles. In other market areas in this world, this is a little bit different when I look over to the European market, for example. So when we were starting and looking into, how we educate the technician properly, what has the technician to know? And we were always looking with two eyes on it. One eye was collision focus. Then the collision side is completely different than the service side. Car comes in for a service event, has to be disconnected. There is nothing wrong with the car. Maybe a part failed, there is a control light on, things like this. But when you get rear-ended and you have a car it's completely wrecked, you run into a situation what we call the unknown. And my colleague Jeff Poole says always, the unknown is what can kill somebody. So now we have a situation what is really, really critical, and we have to explain and teach a process to our technicians that they know how to handle a vehicle before they're bringing the car into the shop. What to do to make the vehicle safe. What to do to determine is the battery safe. That not you bring the car in the shop and on the next day the shop is gone, then it's burned down. So there is so many aspects to this whole game, and we need a game plan. The industry needs a great game plan, and ICAR, me, you, the whole team developed, I think, a really good one. We started up with was 1.5 years ago with an EV summit. So we brought the industry together out of manufacturers, insurers, and industry specialists, and we developed a document, what we call the best practice disconnecting procedure, what you can download on our RTS website. So this document was vetted by the industry, by manufacturers, and it's not there to replace service information. It's there to support manufacturer service information, that you have a really nice guideline to know what to do. And this document became somehow our guide in the whole training development process. So we developed this training class under two really important things. We developed them under European regulations. Then we want to follow the regulations the European market already have implemented. And they help us to understand what tests have to be developed, how to disconnect a vehicle, how to certify, and in Europe they call it a certified disconnecting procedure. That was in my mind. So how to do this and verify zero potential and do all those things. So that whole training is built around European regulation, what match with manufacturer standards, and European manufacturers using the same regulations for their training. And second of all, we put in collision-related topics, and we use our best practice disconnecting procedure. What's wrong with me today? So as a guideline and as the input and how we train. And on the end of the day, we developed a 5-day training course. So now we have two kinds of people, but as you know, we go together through so many training, so many manufacturer speak with the industry, and we want to get the feedback from the industry. What do you think about this training? And we got so many people said, only 5 days? Wow. And then the others, oh, 5 days is too long. So you have to balance it out. We totally understand it's 5 days, it's a huge commitment, but we talk about a really, really critical technology. We talk about a technology somebody can get hurt or killed. So, and this is, I think, a good mixture between 5 days is the sweet spot, in my opinion, where technicians go out there fully confident after a practical and a theoretical exam and can say, yep, I understand what to do. I know what to do. I'm confident,
For sure.
et cetera, et cetera.
For sure. Everybody that's come through the training has told us that the 5 days is right. If we've gotten any feedback, it's that they really have to pay attention for 5 days to absorb all of that. So I would agree. I mean, the 5 days, I get it. And right now, EV may not be the most prevalent thing out there in every shop, but something that our boss, Jeff Peavy, says all the time is it only takes one. That's it. It takes one for somebody to have a life-ending event. So this kind of training needs to get out there. I think something else worth talking about is the shops need to prepare for space. There's tool and equipment, of course, that they need for ADAS and EV, and they need a space for EV. But talk a little bit about the space that they need for EV. The additional stall size and some of the additional equipment, not just the meters, but the evacuation equipment and things like that.
Yeah, so you need to have a lot of extra stuff that you don't normally have in a typical shop. So when we bring a car in, we want to kind of quarantine it off and block it off so no one goes over there and starts touching stuff they shouldn't be touching, because you might have exposed wires and things like that from a collision event. So we want to try and block off that as much as possible, following whatever the OEM manufacturer recommends. Then if we're pulling a battery out, we're going to need a battery lift table. And we need a space to put that battery somewhere so no one else can touch it. So that's taking up some more space there. And then from there, we're going into
Well, the tool and equipment, right? So you're
Yeah.
looking at the different types of meters and things that you
Yeah,
need that
so we
shops
have-
typically don't have.
So you need a milliometer and a megaohmeter, two of which most technicians don't have. They have a multimeter, but the multimeter is not good enough to do what we need to do. When we're talking milliohms, that's what's going to protect us from getting electrocuted. We need to know down to that milliohm where we're at. And your typical meter, your regular meter, you put it on there, it's telling you ohms. It's not going to read down to that milliohm. And if we're off by 10, 15 milliohms, that can be the difference between bad and good.
Right. Well, don't forget Dirk's favorite tool.
Yes, Dirk's favorite tool, the two-pole tester. That's definitely a great tool to have. It's very easy to use. It makes your job quick and easy. You can verify voltage is there or not, verify zero potential. You don't have to worry about flipping your meter on and off and trying to figure out if you're measuring AC/DC. It does it all for you.
Right. I mean, the thing that I like that Dirk says all the time is you can't make a mistake. It either power's there or it's not.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can't make a mistake. So
We're verifying zero potential, and that we're looking for, is power there, yes or no?
Right.
And that tool will tell us that right away.
right.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the methods what we use in this training class. I talked why it's important, how we built this training class, but on the end of the day, it's really important that we have to train technicians in their environment and train them how they're used to learn. And usually technicians learn with experience. Okay, critical on electric vehicles, then experience means you made a mistake and you learn from this mistake. I don't want to make a mistake when it comes to electric vehicles.
No.
And that's the reason we built an electric vehicle card. So what represents a fully electric vehicle. And this card is powered up with 12 volts. So we can make mistakes. And the really cool thing is you can perform all testing with the diagnostic tools you just described, and you see, oh, that's how my meter reacts with an isolation fold. And I know I had one discussion with a gentleman who went to our training class, and he said, "Oh, Dirk, why are you not putting those isolation folds on the real car? That would be better than this card." I said, "Oh yeah, it would be better, but
You get your volunteer heroes.
yeah, but I need a volunteer." No, that's really, we can't do this. So we want to give the best experience. We want to have technicians learn in a practical approach. We want them to collect experience, but the most important thing is that we all go back home to our families after a training, after our daily job, whatever we do. And I think we hit the nail with this training, what we do, and I will invite everybody, come to our Chicago Training Center. You want to learn about electric vehicles or ADAS, you will get into classes. What is a great experience and a great learning curve.
Absolutely. The feedback that we've received from virtually every technician has come through so far is that it's some of the best technical training they've ever taken. So it's not something that they come in and they feel like, it's just another training class. This is good stuff. And we had a meeting with some shop owners yesterday, and some of the guys that were in that meeting have sent technicians to this training. And the feedback that we've received from them is their technicians come back energized and enthused and excited, partially because they were allowed to go and train because they really do enjoy training, but more than that because they started to understand why this is so important and really understand the details behind it.
Yeah, and with these trainings, it's not just you're getting lectured at for 5 days or 3 days. We spend some time going over stuff, and then we're rated in hands-on, the way technicians typically learn. You know, our EV class, it's a great mixture of hands-on and some classroom time to get that stuff through. But the more hands-on time you get, the more learning you get, and it's really great class setup that we have.
And really cool what Mike did. You know, Mike is our, I would say our guru when it comes to IT and things like that. And those monitors and stuff, what you put in, is so cool. So I still have to get used to when I'm presenting. We can use those monitors as whiteboards and stuff like that. So really, really cool technology. And we can hook them up together. And the technology, what is there from a learning perspective is awesome. So Mike, those monitors and all things, kudos to you to put that together, and it's really, really great stuff.
I appreciate that because the cool thing, of course, is putting it in, right? But it's seeing the instructors, the technicians actually use it and find new ways to use it that I originally didn't think of. A great example is you use your Microsoft Surface to actually get kind of a bird's eye view when you're looking at the EV cart. And we kind of joined together, and I said, well, why don't you try Microsoft HoloLens so you can actually be hands-free and the whole class can still see 360 around that, and you can actually point out more things. So as much as I love putting in the technology, people using it is great, and then when people come to me and say, well, can I do this? And it's like, I think we can. It just makes the whole thing really click together. So what we have is excellent, and just gives students a lot of opportunities to experience learning in a new way.
And that's the great thing I like about having you in the building here is like I can walk down to your office and say, hey, let's try this. Like, or you get a new toy and I'm like, how can we integrate that into trainings and make things useful? And then you'll get ideas from me and we'll bounce ideas back and forth. And it really helps elevate this next level of training that we're bringing to the technicians.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree. So we've only got a few minutes left, but let's talk a little bit now about the other piece for the Chicago Tech Center and what it's for, and it's the research side of things. You know, we've got the ADAS lab and the EV lab and the Flex lab, and then we've got the repair procedure verification area and a welding lab. But we start to think about, even if we just focus on EV and ADAS for a minute, and the research that we're doing in there, we have the vehicles, we have the OEM tools, but we have some of the aftermarket tools in there as well. And the idea behind that is we're able to do some research. We're able to do these calibrations with the OEM tools, the aftermarket tools, maybe at some point have conversations with vehicle makers about tools that may be options for them in the future. Currently, Obviously we tell everybody follow OE procedures. So if it says use the OEM scan tool and target, and this is how you do it, that's what they do. But this allows us to get in there and do some of that research on the ADAS and the EV side. What are some of the things we're doing to start to really dive into that research?
So lately I've been trying the OE tools versus the aftermarket tools and just seeing how they react and how each one's different and how they set up. And then with some of our shop cars that we own, we can do some manipulations of things and try and see, hey, what happens if this is off, or hey, this bracket was bent. How did that affect the aiming of the radar or something like that?
Right. A lot of that's to help techs understand how important it is that those things are mounted properly, that the mounting locations aren't bent and things like that, so that we understand what it does, right? Because some of the things that we've done with this research is we've started to learn that if that bracket's bent in some cases, the system will calibrate initially, but then as you drive the vehicle, it gets further and further out of whack, and then the system just drops offline. So it's those types of things that we can start to do the research to help technicians and shop owners understand why this is so important and the things they need to look for.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the dynamic calibrations and stuff like that, trying to figure out what happens when those fail, part of our Ford class and things like that. There's a whole lot of stuff that can go wrong that we're still just trying to figure this stuff out as we go, because it's still a whole new technology that we haven't really had a bunch of time with. ADAS has been around for a bit, but it's still kind of a mystery to a lot of people, and we're trying to unmystify this for everybody.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're getting close to the end, but I think I would end with this. We're, at least from my perspective, you guys can have your piece to close it out as well. But we're starting, as Dirk, as you mentioned earlier, you and I have a lot of conversations with vehicle makers and others in the industry around, especially if we talk about EV right now. And we have kind of had this feeling from the beginning that because EV is growing so fast, the manufacturers, even those that have training, are going to get to a point that they're going to have a tipping point where they just can't keep up with the demand to get all of these technicians trained. And we're starting to see that come to fruition with us, I guess you could say, because we're having conversations with vehicle makers now that have their own training that are saying, hey, we need help. We want to start sending technicians through your training because they're starting to run out of capacity or realize they're going to. So this is good stuff. It's very, very, very critical for the shops and shop owners and technicians out there to come into this facility, get this training. You won't regret it. It's gearing your shop up for the future. But with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. Any parting comments?
You said the manufacturers looking really to us right now and see what we do. They want to learn from us. And it's really cool that we developed in these 2 years not only this training center, but we came also more and more into a consulting role for the manufacturers, and they really, really appreciate the experience what we bring in. And when we talk about the training center again, for example, we built a key card system that we can have also manufacturers have their space where we can only have people have access to that space when they have the right key card. So the reason why we do it is not we want to make anything in a secret way, but from time to time manufacturers really send us vehicles. They are pre-production vehicles that we researching and help them for their repair procedures or others. And yeah, we can't have then pictures, Facebook and those social media stuff. It's a hot topic for them. When they would have somebody makes a picture of this new Hummer or whatever it came out, it's critical. So, and we created the environment to really help the manufacturers with their needs. And I think the status of iCar, especially for manufacturers, increased in those last 2 years a lot, and this training facility helps us. And that is not only, I think, for the ultimate benefit of the consumer at the end of the day, that we can support them better, we can educate better, then we have direct information from those manufacturers and access to them, and exchanging those information and experience, what helps in the end of the day the technician to learn and get the best possible education as needed. And I think the training center was a huge enabler for this.
Yep.
So, and that was my last comment, I think, to this. So,
very well said. Very well said. So, Guys, always great to hang out with my buddies from iCar and talk about all this stuff that we're all so passionate about. But hey, you guys have a great day. Everybody out there watching, have a great day.
Thank you.